Alright, so it's time for the monthly Q&A. This video was actually supposed to go up about a week ago, but I honestly just got lazy and didn't do it. Will there be 2 Q&As this month because I'm starting one at the beginning and usually they're at the end? Maybe, not entirely sure. It will depend on how many questions I get and ultimately if I feel like doing it. But I imagine there'll be another Q&A this month. If not, it'll just be the beginning of next one. So let's kick it off. If you got any questions, leave them down below. I'll save them for a future video more than likely, and let's get started. How would you define a spoiler? Or the kind that ruins the fun? I've seen people online try to argue giving spoilers, but it felt like they're walking on eggshells trying to avoid spoiling anything. I mean, a spoiler is going to be different for literally every single person. I think it's universally agreed that big moments that have yet to be revealed are a spoiler. In terms of what ruins someone's fun, like, it's always going to be different. I think, for me anyway, if you look at how I cover the Attack on Titan anime, I've read the manga dozens of times, but my videos are completely anime-only safe. I only discuss, I only analyze, and I only bring up thoughts that I had at that particular moment of reading the manga with where the anime's at. So I never go, oh, you know, I'm gonna spoil, or I'm just gonna say people should have read the manga because it's been out for a while. Absolute asshole train of thought that a lot of people share, that, oh, if something's being adapted from something, then we can just spoil them because, you know, they should have read it by now. Completely different mediums, completely different target audience, right? But I think in terms of, you know, walking on eggshells, if people are going to discuss future plot points that have yet to be revealed, use a spoiler warning. It takes no time, it's very easy, and it tells people who don't want to see that information, oh shit, people are talking about spoilers. I think a good example of stuff that I think it looks like a spoiler but isn't a spoiler is you can actually use, like, it was in the Black Summoner videos that I was doing. There's one point that, like, someone thought it was a spoiler when it really wasn't, because I made it to look like, you know, it was, the title was something along the lines of, like, the future Demon King ends up joining the party or something like that. And that could look like a spoiler, but it really wasn't, because it's kind of like a bait and switch, right? One, she's just a future potential candidate. It's not guaranteed she'll ever become the Demon King or the Demon Lord, right? And also, it was very clear from openings to character listings, like, she was going to join the party anyway. The actual spoiler in that episode, spoiler warning, was that the demon that we were fighting to release her was actually like this lovable stepfather that got killed. So, like, that would have been the actual spoiler. But you can see how, like, I can use titles and stuff to make it seem appealing and shocking without actually ruining the episode. So I mean, spoilers are going to be different for everyone, and people who want to know absolutely nothing about potentially anything, it's up to them to avoid things, you know, like, I wait for a lot of big shows to end. Like, I want to watch the new House of Dragon show. I wait for it to be over. I avoid what I can, right? So I think spoilers are different for everyone. It's just a lot of common sense, you know, avoid the big moments, but also don't be an asshole and reveal information that is yet to be revealed. And if you do, use spoiler warnings so people can avoid it. I've been watching your review since Chaos Child. My question, how often do you listen to anime music? Like, for me, it's when I do cleaning, dishes, or go for hikes. Appreciate the long-term support. Just want to say that up front. In terms of, like, just simply going in my way to listen to anime music, not a hell of a lot. There's certain soundtracks that I go back to from time to time, just if I'm in the mood. I will always bring up Guilty Crown soundtrack, Megalobox soundtrack, Attack on Titan OST tracks are insanely well done. But personally for me, most of my music is just bands I like. So, you know, when stuff's in anime, of course, I like it and I appreciate it. But it's only select times where, you know, because I do so much in the day as is, like, I usually don't have time to add in music because it would distract from playing a video game that I'm playing or watching a show. Like, the only time really I would have is, like, when I'm exercising and stuff, and usually I just watch TV when I do that. But there's certain soundtracks for sure that I never forget about and from time to time I'll go back and listen to. Did you have a problem with your friends or family when you started getting into anime? I speak from a generation where if you watch Saint Seiya or Dragon Ball, then it's okay, but if you said you like Cardcaptor, there was someone outside school waiting to kick your ass. Goddamn, violent school there. I mean, not really. I mean, I didn't really get into anime until I basically finished high school. I actually thought it was a weird concept because all the anime I saw people watch was pretty questionable stuff in high school. So for me, not really. Like, I mean, I was always a big gamer. I had more people push back against video games for me because, you know, while people were going out getting drunk and partying and killing themselves early, I would rather stay home and play Call of Duty with my friends or play an RPG like Mass Effect, right? So there's more pushback of that because it was like, oh, you're not being social enough, and I don't know, bitch, please, now I get to make money not being social, so I guess it all worked out, but we all have different things that I think people push back because there's so much stigma and, you're supposed to conform to certain ways in society. I ain't about that lifestyle. Definitely was not fun when stuff gets pushed back, but eventually you learn to just not give a damn. So this one comes from Twitter. What's your favorite relationship dynamic? That's a good one. There's actually quite a few I really like, but I honestly really enjoy just the simple childhood friend dynamic in terms of just how so many stories use it. Not the most revolutionary idea, and we've seen it a ton of times and even outside of anime, but I think when anime gets it right, when they're more in the sweet elements, not really trying to force drama, that kind of like they grew up together, they were friends, and they didn't even really realize what love was. Now they're starting to feel. I think it creates some interesting chemistry, tension, but without being super toxic about it. I also like the kind of like sort of dynamic that you could look at like Horimiya as an example, right? Someone who they think one thing and then someone gets to know them and then it kind of opens up their worldview. So those are the two I'd probably put my money on and saying like those are my absolute favorites for sure. What are some games or series you think should get an anime adaptation? I think the biggest one for me was always like looking at stuff like The Legend of Zelda. I always thought like, yes, there's been shows of Zelda, don't get me wrong, but I've always thought like put in the right shoes, like the right director. You could create a really cool story with that. It probably would never happen, and I think your better bet would be something like an Elden Ring or like a From Software universe where you have a bit more freedom that you could use that lore to craft a more compelling story than something that's more about the player adventuring. But there's a lot of potential, but there's also way more room for failure than just playing it safe and adapting something that's already kind of crafted for anime, like a manga or even a light novel. It's just very easy to translate over and make it work, where a video game is just such a different medium that it's a lot more hard. But there's so many narrative games from Mass Effect, Dragon Age, like there's a lot of potential to just make a really compelling two-core anime that could work quite well, especially if you kind of directed it like a Gundam or something. But I guess only time will tell with what we get in the future, especially with certain companies like Netflix making even more. Like you could look at the Cyberpunk anime that's coming out. So there's a lot of potential of maybe taking influence from a game and turning it into something brand new, which would probably be the best case, but I guess only time will tell. This one also comes from Twitter. You said you didn't like reading source material. Is it a dislike for reading overall, or just a choice so you can create content for the channel? Do you like reading stuff that isn't related to otaku culture? So back when I was in high school, I was actually a big fan of reading books. Like I loved reading, like the thing that actually kickstarted me reading a bunch of books was I just randomly picked up the first Percy Jackson book in my school's library, and then I ended up purchasing, and I read a lot in school, even though I played a lot of games. Like just there's something about visual mediums for me that are just so much more compelling. Like I just don't enjoy reading that much. It's just, I lack the music, I lack the voice acting, I even lack the color when it comes to manga and stuff. So for me, it's just, there's a lot of people out there that just prefer watching stuff on TV. It's like, I think the best example, like I can play a board game from time to time, but I would much rather play a co-op game in terms of like a video game than play a board game with someone next to me. Like that's just how it is. So it's the same thing with like manga or light novels. I'd rather just watch the anime. So it's not really like because I'm trying to like save stuff for my channel, which it does help because if I can theorize without needing to walk on eggshells to not spoil things, that helps. I just don't enjoy it anymore. I just love video games. I love TV. I love movies and stuff. I love music, but just reading I don't know, I feel like it lessens my personal experience, but nothing against people who like reading more than watching an anime or anything like that. What is the most awesome anime moment that pops up in your mind at this point in time? Just something that makes you shout out in excitement. Cleanse that palate with some good memories. Yeah, we've been talking about some hot takes recently, so good memories, that's good. I meant to do this video like 3 weeks ago, truthfully, and I had a specific moment in mind, but I think I have two right here. The first of which, it's partially due because I'm in the process of rewatching Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters for the millionth time, first time with my fiance, and it's recently come up, but it is a moment that I actively think about from my childhood, and that's when the Egyptian gods first got summoned. Like, the first time you saw Slifer the Sky Dragon in Yu-Gi-Oh! In Battle City, that was one of the hypest things that all across my public school, that shit was talked on the schoolyard non-stop. Like, there's something about that, it just took Duel Monsters to a brand new level, and even rewatching it so many times, it still gives me that same childlike wonder and that kind of hit of nostalgia that you can't buy, right? But I will say something a little more recent that I think it stays on my mind. The first time you kick off Attack on Titan, seeing the Colossal Titan over the walls, there is not a better establishing shot in anime, in my opinion, than that first moment. The music, the directing, that shit gets me excited and fearful. So those two, hands down, my personal favorite, like probably one of my favorite anime moments, period. But in terms of just pure like excitement stuff that makes me just shout out, that has to be it. What's your guilty pleasure anime you'll defend? I think I've answered a similar question earlier in the Q&As, like maybe even a year ago, but personally there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure. Like what you like, and if people tell you can't like it, tell them to screw off and mute them. Like if it's someone in your life, walk away. Either you like it or you don't, sort of a thing. Like yes, there's certain things that you can recognize are like junk food, and maybe it's not the same quality as like your favorite like actually well-written thing. But I think the whole idea of guilty pleasure is just like, it's almost a way for people to avoid maybe admitting faults to things they like, or they feel like they need to downplay something so that people won't make fun of them. If you think something has faults, just say they have faults and say like you enjoy it because of this, even though you think a lot of the elements are bad. Maybe it's just because you like the drama in something. Maybe it's something that you just like a specific character. Like you can criticize that. But if you find yourself needing to downplay a show you like because if you don't call it a guilty pleasure, people will like shit on your taste, they're not people worth discussing in my opinion. So like what you like and screw people for saying otherwise. I've been thinking about making a video on my journey through anime over the last 10 years, since this December will mark 10 years since I started watching anime regularly. Do you think it's a good idea, and if so, how should I go about it? I actually answered this in the comments itself, but I wanted to make a mention in the video as well. You should make anything you want to make on YouTube. The thing that you'll quickly realize is either you got a knack for it or you don't, but don't let that discourage you. You gotta just practice makes perfect. There's a lot of planning that goes into stuff, like the fact that you want to make a pretty great topic, but for a first video, it's probably not going to turn out as good as you want in your head. So, you know, you got to think about editing software, recording software, what type of mic are you going to use? There's a lot of planning to it. So my personal opinion is start small, maybe do like because it doesn't have to be right on the 10 year. You could do it next year after you did a few videos and got a little more comfortable. So for me personally, trial and error. You don't even have to upload the videos. Just make some stuff, see how your audio's sounding, how your presentations, figure out what you want to do and go from there. But just practice and time makes perfect, right? You know, don't get discouraged. Maybe save that video for a couple videos after you get a little more custom. But if you want to go balls deep right away, go ahead. Just keep doing things. You know, a lot of people probably won't watch it, but that's how it is when you start out. You just got to keep going, keep grinding, and you never know where the future might take you. If you had to go on a survival trip and had to choose a few of your favorite foods that you had to eat for a week, what would that food be? And what kind of items would you bring if you had to live in the forest in that trip? This is interesting. Like, my favorite food, hands down, ever since I was a child, was Greek salad. So, like, if I had some Greek salad and maybe some, honestly, love chicken teriyaki subs from Subway, if you give me those two, I'd probably be in paradise, just disconnected from the internet for a week. I'd be chilling and just, enjoying the sun. In terms of, like, items, honestly, if you give me a power generator and, like, just give me my Xbox, man, I got enough games on there that I'd be chilling with that. So if you could give me that, that'd be great. But in terms of practical, just give me some survival gear, like a good tent and stuff, and I'm just chilling at that point. But that's it for this video. So let me know any questions you want to have answered, whether related to anime or not, and I might save it for a future video. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.